Welcome to the Keepin' It Real Estate Podcast. I'm Allie Vasquez with Charis Realty Group based out of Frederick, Maryland. Let's talk about what happened on Monocacy Ford Road. If you follow me on Instagram, my handle's right here below at Allie.Vasquez.md. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see a lot of shit go down in my stories in real time. In June, I was absolutely sweating and shitting my pants and crying and throwing up over Monocacy Ford Road. So to give you the backstory, this was a family that I loved. Some might say I love them more than my own family. That doesn't take a whole lot, but honestly, I love the shit out of these people. They were so nice to me. They hug me more than my own family hugs me. They are just the nicest people in the world. They own a restaurant, which is good because, you know, they obviously have several branches of this restaurant in, our area. But the problem is that people who are self-employed and people who own restaurants a lot of times don't claim a lot of income because they don't want to get hit with taxes. And so a few years ago, we're talking maybe 3 years ago at this point, they had said to me, "Hey, Allie, we want to buy a house." And I was like, it's going to be an uphill battle. So I want to make sure that you're really well approved. And so they went to a lender. The lender was like, yeah, you don't claim enough income to be able to buy anywhere near what you want. And so that's pretty common, especially for self-employed people such as myself. So they said, okay, well, we have a family friend who's going to give us kind of like a personal hard money loan, and he's going to buy it cash, and then we're going to get a loan from him. Sounded a little sketchy to me, not going to lie, because, you know, who's just willing to give their friends like $1 million to buy a house? But, you know, this is just everybody else's world and I'm just living in it. So, turns out the friend didn't come through with the money. He kind of just like ghosted everybody in the middle of the night. And we had to figure out that he was like not trying to give us that money. And so we had found a house. We had fallen in love with it. We exited on the last day of the inspection contingency because that's kind of the only window that we had left before we could just ghost on this transaction. And we ended up not getting the house. And it was heartbreaking. They really wanted it. The sellers really still haven't sold it. Like, we really, really wanted that house to work and it didn't. So flash forward to like 2 years later, my friend texts me and he's like, "Hey, Allie, I'm ready to buy a house." And I was like, ha ha ha, yeah, cool. Like, remember what happened last time? And he was like, "No, but actually this time I am." And then just sends me a pre-approval letter. So he had spoken to a lender back then, and this lender had followed up with him and helped him over the course of 2 years to be able to claim what he needed to claim on his taxes to be able to make this house work. So that is a really good strategy for people who are self-employed. If you don't you don't claim that you make a lot of money, sometimes it's better to take a hit on taxes for 2 years so that you can actually get the house that you want and then go back to, you know, doing different kinds of write-offs or just not claiming as much or whatever. That's between you and the IRS. Don't get me involved in that. But so he had followed those rules for the next 2 years and was able to buy a house. And so we were rocking and rolling. We wrote a very competitive offer. In fact, I wrote this very competitive offer while I was drunk poolside, and I I knew what was going to get them in, and even alcohol couldn't stop me from just getting in there and getting the deal done. And so we beat out other offers. We're getting down to the wire, and we find out that we need some more documentation from the accountant. This happens a lot, and especially with self-employed people. And the one thing that you need to learn is that accountants aren't fast. They aren't fast about anything. And if the more that you say like, "Hey, we need this ASAP," the slower they're going to be. So the lender is like, "Hey, we need this one letter from you saying this." And the accountant kept writing it incorrectly. So every time we go to the accountant, we ask them to write the letter, and then by the time the letter comes back to us, that's probably like a 3 or 4 day turnaround time. And we are like 1 week away from closing. So we are pressuring the accountant. The listing agent is pressuring me. I am literally sweating, crying, shitting myself 24 hours a day, just for probably 5 days in a row, waiting for this accountant to respond, waiting for this accountant to do the right thing, only to find out that it's wrong. And then we have to redo the letter again. This went on and on and on. And when I tell you I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I barely even sat. All I did was pace for 5 days, because not only is this a very good friend of mine, and not only do I love his family, but their entire, housing future is resting on this. And I had to do it for them. And I had to show them that I could do it and that I could, make it happen. And so we went back and forth, back and forth. If you followed me on Instagram, you saw in my stories that it was like, oh my gosh, ha ha ha, everything's fine. Just kidding. We need another letter. Oh my gosh, now we're waiting. And then, then you see me like, hi, I'm sitting here with my friend having lunch, shitting my pants because we still don't have our clear to close. And then you're like, oh, here I am. I'm sitting by a pool. I am actually crying because we still don't have our clear to close. Like everything in my life was. And I am actually miserable here because we don't have our clear to close. Then we finally got our clear to close. They purchased this home. They're so happy. I'm still waiting for my invitation to the housewarming party. That hasn't come yet. Hopefully that's coming soon. But then it turns out I moved in maybe like 2 or 3 miles away from them. So I can go over whenever I want. They own the house now, but that just goes to show you that number one, as a self-employed person, you have to make sure that your pre-approval is airtight. Now, nothing that accountant could have said would have necessarily completely derailed the transaction, and they had obviously done what they had needed to do for those past 2 years, but you need to make sure that your pre-approval is so set in stone because just so many things can go wrong when they're calculating your income when you're self-employed. And not only that, but it also just goes to show that you have to persevere even when it looks like you're not going to get the house. You just have to keep pushing forward as if you will. There were a couple times during my purchase where I wanted to quit. Most notable being probably like 4 days before closing. I was like, I could just say, no, I'm not doing this anymore because I needed a letter from my accountant. And my accountant said, I don't know what to tell you, Allie. I'm not writing you any more letters. I could have just given up right there, but I said, no, I got to push through. So you always have to push through as if you're getting this house and just do whatever they ask of you so that you can get it. Thanks for coming and we'll see you next time. Bye.